Hey, everyone. It's Othania here with Create Your Future. So, today I'm going to talk about states and I'm going to get into a little more detail about it because I feel like it's really the key. It's really the key. So, let's get right into it. Um, States. So, states are your state of mind, right? Um, and in each state, you have different thoughts. You're a different version of you. Um, for an example, if you're in a relationship and you feel sad, you're in a sad state, and you feel sad about your relationship, that's a sad state. In that sad state, you would do things like call your friends. You would do things like cry about your relationship. You would do things like be depressed and want to lay down in bed all day. You'll do things like not eat and not want to do things that you would usually do um, if you were in a state of happiness and joy and feeling good and feeling lucky. When you're in a happiness of feeling lucky, happy, and enjoy, you're not crying about being sad. You're not in bed feeling depressed. You have energy to go live life and do things and be with your friends and travel the world and feel happy and do things like that. So, states are your states of mind. And you could also think about it, states like, states. Like each state, you know, have different laws. Each state that you in, you have different thoughts, different which makes you have different actions. So your states are really important because you lose your free will to your states. Um, if you feel like, you know, you need a therapist, you're in a state of needing a therapist until you feel like you don't need your therapist anymore, then you're out of the state of needing a therapist. So you're always in a state of doing something. If you're a dancer, you're in your dancing state, and in that state you have on your dance clothes and your shoes and you're dancing and you're present in that moment. You're in that state. So you got to ask yourself, what state am I in? How am I feeling towards the things that I want? Because that's the answer. How you feel is an indication of where you're going and the types of circumstances you're going to create if you don't change it to something else that you actually do want, to the state that you actually want to be in. So to get in a state, you have to think yourself to a new state. So you'll notice that when you first feel sad about a breakup, right, you're in a sad state, and then with time you start shifting and then you start letting go. The Which letting go really is just letting go of the old story, which is the anxiety and all of the bad things that you keep rehashing. Once you let that go, you start noticing you feel lighter and lighter, your states are changing. And before you know it, you're in a state where you're not thinking about how you used to think about that person. Before you were in a state where you hated them, you wanted nothing but revenge, you wanted them to get karma, you wanted them to feel how you felt when you were hurt. When you're in a new state and you're over that, you're not going to really feel that way about that person. You may start having thoughts where you're like, I forgive them because I know that I was the cause of that anyway, when you're in a state of more awareness of what you're doing. Um, or when you're living in the end state, for real, genuinely, then you'll notice that, especially if it's the same with that same person, you notice that you see them different. You see them in a more loving way because you're in a new state. You're in the end loving state with them. Because you also got to remember you're always in the end of something. You're either in the end of rejection of it or you're in the end of actually having it. Or moving towards it, or moving towards not moving towards losing it, not having it. So your states are important. You got to ask yourself, what state am I in? What state are you in right now? If you were to think about your person, do you feel anxiety? Do you feel afraid? Do you feel like it's never going to happen? Because that's a state of lack. That's a state of a person that just doesn't have it. Now, if you start changing your thoughts consciously, intentionally, with deliberate intent and purpose, you'll start shifting to a new state, because you know you're in a new state when you start thinking different about the same thing you thought about before, right? So you just notice what people be like, oh, I'm never talking to that person again. And the next thing you know, they're talking to them is because they're in a new state. They think different about that person now, and we're always shifting because you're always thinking different, and you can have a new thought and start thinking about that thought, and then you identify with that, and then now you're in that state, and then now your reality has to reflect to that state. So your states are important because they tell you what's going on within. You got to focus more on within instead of what's going on the outside. Keeping up with the 3D is not going to do anything that I would deem favorable for you. If you're constantly checking the 3D, you're in a state of not having it. When you're happily married, when you're in a relationship and everything is going well, you will not have the need to check anything because you're in a state of love, you're in a state of confidence, and you're in a state of knowing. If you're checking anything to see if anything is working, you are not in the end of the state you want to be in. No matter how much you're affirming, no matter how much you think you're conscious, you taking that action, let alone, shows that you're not in the end state, because your intention of taking that action is to see what's going on because you know you don't have it. So you're in a state of not having, no matter how much you thought you were affirming. Because if you're still taking that action, you're taking action from the state you're in subconsciously. That's why it's important to get your subconscious to start taking on new thoughts, because your state comes from your thoughts that you're thinking it, right? So, for example, um, right, when someone starts going to a dance class, they never went to a dance class before, so they never had a dance studio in their reality until they started identifying as being a dancer and going to the dance classes. Their reality had to reflect a dance studio, a dance teacher, other dancers. Their reality had to reflect that because they now identify as a dancer. If they stop dancing, they don't identify as a dancer anymore. The dance studios cannot pop up in their reality. They can't be in those environments because they no longer identify with that. They're not in the state of being a dancer. Your states have everything attached to them. Your mental states have everything attached to them because everything in the 3D is coming from your mental. Okay? Everything that's to come that you are creating are coming from your present states. And your states are embodied through your thoughts. Okay? So you got to be mindful and ask yourself always, what state am I in? Because it's going to tell you what's coming. If you're in a state of feeling like you don't have your person, and you're constantly having the thoughts of, oh, they don't want me. If you're rehashing arguments, if you're not feeling confident in yourself, if you're feeling, insecure or whatever, state of lack, state of not having, in the end state of not having, in the end state of rejection, you're living in the end of the opposite of what you want to live in the end of. So it's just important to be aware, because what you're thinking is what you're creating. All of those questions of why doesn't he, want to be with me? And why doesn't, no, he always wants to be with me because you want to put yourself in the state of the person that has it. If you're thinking why he doesn't want to be with me and you're constantly thinking that, how do you expect anyone to come into reality and reflect anything other than that? So you just got to be extra, extra, extra mindful. Um, States tell you where you are, right? Different states have different package deals. If you're in a state of being insecure, that's a package deal of when you get into relationships, they're going to be really rocky because that's what comes with that state. When you're in a state of confidence and security within yourself and is really grounded within you and you're in that state, you're going to have different circumstances that reflect that. Because your reality can only follow you. It can only shift with you. You have to be aware of what you're thinking and you have to get control of it in order to get a better control of what's going on in your own experience. Okay? So you want to be in the state of having, and you do that by thinking really good about yourself. Because you always got to say to yourself, why do I keep thinking against myself? Like, why do I keep putting myself in a state of not having? I'm tired of being in that state. I'm tired of being in that state. So you just want to say, no, I'm the person that always has it all. I'm the person that my person can't get enough of. Be in a state of always having it because isn't that what you want? To always have the things that you want. You got to use your mind as your best friend because it's easy for it to become an enemy if you're not helping by inserting better things into it or changing what doesn't serve you. Right? When you don't change the thoughts that don't serve you, you're letting your mind control you instead of you controlling your mind. And that is putting you in a state of being out of control, which is why your 3D is reflecting that. So, states. Like I said, each state is a package deal. And you always want to be in the state as much as you can of having it because that is the goal. That is why we get into the law of assumption to get what we want and to finally stop thinking against ourselves because we came to a realization that this is what's causing these issues and problems, right? Because to be honest, you've been in a state of not having what you want for years for a lot of people. Because a lot of people don't know they have to change their thinking yet. So I intend that this has helped you. And I intend that you got a way better understanding on states and how they work. Um, Another thing, real quick. Because sometimes I still see people say, things like when people return after a breakup, it's like, oh, now you want to come back when I don't care about you anymore. Or now you want to come back into my life. And it's just like, little do they know, they just shifted states. They just got into a state where they let go of needing that person, and the person came back and reflected that. That's all that it is. And so shift by thinking favorable. If you want to stay in a state of not having, well, keep up with thinking against what you want because that's going to keep serving you that reality. You know what I mean? So Be graceful with yourself, though. That doesn't mean beat yourself up and be like, oh my God, I'm not having a favorable thought right now. You have to be graceful with yourself and talk to yourself like a child that kind of doesn't know any better. And I say that in a sense of talking to yourself gentle, being gentle with yourself. You thought that way for a long time, but also understand as soon as you start thinking different and you shift into that state, things are instantaneous. The other day, wait, let me share this story. The other day, I was in Bath and Body Works, and I wanted this one scent called is it Into the Moon on or something like that? How can I forget the scent? It's one of my favorite scents. I got the bottle right there, but it's Into the Night, Into the Moon, Into the Night is the name of the scent. And usually when this scent comes out, it sells out very quickly, especially in the spray bottles. So I went to the store. It's Black Friday. Shopping is going on even more. No, I think it was the day after Black Friday. So I go in the store and I'm like, do you guys have Into the Night? They didn't have any of the spray bottles, but they only had the lotions and the body washes and the body shimmer. I wasn't looking for that though. So he's like, no, we don't have any more bottles. They're all sold out. So I'm like, okay, knowing what I know with law of assumption, somewhere in this building, there's a bottle of Into the Night and it's going home with me. So I got into the state of knowing that I was gonna get that spray bottle. So I'm standing on the line. It's kind of a long line. But I'm standing on the line, and I get to the register, and I'm like, I know you guys sold out on of the Into the Night on the floor, but would you by any chance have like any bottles laying around in the back or something like that? She's like, oh no, I don't think we do. And in my mind, I'm like, no, there's a bottle in this building of Into the Night that I'm going home with because I'm in the state of having it. So then she says, well, you know what? Let me ask my manager. So she goes to her manager and asks her, do we have any extra bottles of Into the Night in the back? And then the manager says, oh, I just threw one in the damage pile. So she goes to the damage pile and it still sprays, but it was in the damage pile because the top was a little loose. And they ended up giving it to me for free. Do you understand? By getting in the state of having, things have to work out where you get what you want. And I know that it was just a spray bottle, but it works the same with people. And the only reason why it makes it seem like it doesn't work that easy with people is because of the stories of opposition that we put in our own minds about them. But as soon as you get into the state of having, you have to have it. And I felt very strongly, and I knew that somewhere in that building, there was a bottle going home with me. In some way, somehow it did, and it had to play out. And I got my bottle of Into the Night for free. And it worked out even better than I thought. So you have to stand strong and believe in yourself. That is the key, right? You got to think about it. This is how I like to think about it, right? Like if I was, because I love Harry Potter, if I was in Hogwarts, I would want to be the best wizard, like Harry and Hermione, right? And Ron too, right? They were like all great wizards, and especially Dumbledore. Like I will want to be one of the greatest wizards, and to be one of the greatest wizards, you cannot doubt your magic. And if you're really doubting your magic, it's like you're at a level of wizardry that like sucks. Like you gotta take more classes to get to being a master wizard, where you don't doubt yourself, where your magic just works, and you just know it works because you really believe in your magic and you really just believe in yourself, right? So I like to think about my life like that. Like that's how much I want to believe in myself. Believe in your magic. Believing in yourself is believing in your magic. Believe you can have it and just see yourself. Use your mind the right way. Use your mind the correct way. I don't know. I think it's Einstein that said it. Worry is misuse of the imagination. So to use it the right way, in other words, that means that You have to see yourself with what you want. You have to see yourself married with your spouse in the best relationship. You have to see yourself with your baby, holding your baby if you want to be a parent. You have to see yourself going to the bank, making deposits, withdrawals of $10,000, $1,000,000. If you want to have your house, you have to see yourself using your keys to walk through the door, you cooking in your kitchen, and visioning yourself how you want to see yourself. If you were to use your mind to see yourself how you want to see yourself at like all times, you will like a level of mastery that is like amazing. Not saying that your mind has to, has to be perfect, 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 but you can get yourself to a point where you have a great, great flow in your life to the point where it feels like you really love your life and you're more in control in a healthy and good way. So I intend that this gave you a better, clear understanding on states and how to understand yourself more and how to be more aware of what state you're in, because that's going to help you and give you clear indication of what's going on in your own reality and personal experiences. If you like coaching with me, the link for that is in the description box below. Create Your Future also has a free course, and if you're interested in that, the link for that is also in the description box below. So until next time, see you guys.